So today we're going to talk about your Facebook pixel. That is the backbone of your successful campaigns. The Facebook pixel offers powerful analytics and extremely granular tracking. And it requires some time up front, but it's absolutely time that's worth spending because of the later returns you're going to get from your campaigns by putting in this time on the front end. So for starters, as a caveat, your pixel setup is going to depend a little bit on which of the three major business models you fall into. Now, there are outliers, but basically, most companies fall into one of these three categories when they're running Facebook ads. The first is lead generation. So these involve you've got a salesperson or even a sales team on the back end. Your goal is you want to get people to fill out a form, give you information. You're going to nurture them and work on killing objections through a sales cycle. You may have some content, but ultimately the sales made on a one-to-one basis. It's very customized, and your salespeople are involved. Next up is the e-commerce folks. This is touchless, so you're going to come in, you're going to make a purchase. You're never going to talk to a person. You're never going to pick up the phone. The goal is to sell a product. Occasionally, you'll sell like a digital product, but it's still eventually buying a thing, a good, a something like that. And typically those cycles are shorter, although depending on the size of the purchase, they can be a little bit higher. If you're buying a $500 leather jacket or a $1,500 sauna insert for your shower, those are larger purchases. But a lot of the differentiation tends to be price and product based in this market. Do you carry the right model or line of products, and do you have the best price on them? And finally, you've got the SaaS or app based companies. And so this is where you're trying to get somebody to sign up for an app, download an app, get onboarded in some way. There may be a purchase later on. The cycle really depends here. I mean, if you've got a free trial, it may be a very short sales cycle to get somebody on, then a long cycle to get them to purchase. Or it may be a long cycle right up front if it's something like a 12-month subscription to a piece of B2B software. So it's a little more variance in the sales cycle. And most of the differentiation is based on whether you fit the needs of your customer with your specific features. Now, there are outliers or there are ones where you're somewhere in between some of these, but by and large, if you're running Facebook ads, you're probably falling into one of these three online business models. So, what do depending on your business model as far as your event tracking goes? So, first up, let's discuss what are standard events. Standard events are, there's 9 of them. You can see them listed out here. These are conversion based events that feed back into the pixel and give information about what somebody is doing on your website. You may ask, well, I've seen these, but I've also seen custom conversions. Why wouldn't I just use those? And the short version is that standard events are better in almost every way than a custom conversion because you can pass extra parameters and data inside of them. They don't tend to fire based on a URL so much as on an event, so they tend to be more accurate. You can view them in aggregate, so all of your purchases lumped together rather than purchases made from specific landing pages or leads gained from certain landing pages. They integrate well with other systems, especially purchase-based systems, so dynamic application. And they're the only way that you can run dynamic product ads if you're running a e-commerce store. So depending on which of your three business models you're using, you may use a different set of these 9. Obviously, e-commerce gets the most use out of this because they have the small granular tracking, but you may find ways to employ these in other areas. So maybe if you're a lead gen company, but you sell a one-off product on your website, you'll include the purchase standard event as well. But these are by and large how it breaks down. So these are the events that you're going to want to be paying attention to and how your funnel is going to be built off of. And here's something to call out here. Why would you want to pass those extra parameters we talked about earlier? Well, let's suppose you run an e-commerce store and you don't just want to see the conversion value of a purchase, but you want to see how much is getting left on the table when people add products to their cart and don't check out. So by passing a value with add to cart, you can now see the potential pipeline that's still out there that you could go after and retarget. Now, there are still cases where you're going to use custom conversions. They're a bit of a last resort for most cases, but they do still have some value. They're URL driven or event driven, and so you can set up to 20 of these custom conversions, and they're a good way, for example, to split standard events. So if you want to track leads with a standard event, but then you want to use custom conversions to highlight which of those leads came from certain white papers or certain webinars, you can define that based on a lead event firing on a page with a certain URL. So there are still use cases for custom conversions, but you don't want to make them the core of your pixel tracking setup. Now, let's get to the actual implementation about how you deploy your pixel the right way from the very beginning. The first thing you want to know is that there is a base pixel code. This is crucial to making sure everything fires correctly. It has to be the first piece of code from Facebook that fires on your site. So that's why we put it before the end of the head section on your website and before anything else from Facebook, such as a standard event, fires. This pixel initializes Facebook's tracking so that it starts to pay attention. It also includes a page view um, built into it. This pixel needs to fire everywhere on your site. It needs to fire on your marketing site. It needs to fire in your app. It needs to fire on your Unbounce instance. It needs to fire in your Shopify cart. It needs to fire in your payment gateway. If you've got a page that you send traffic to, you need to be firing the Facebook pixel. Even if you don't fire any standard events on that page, you need to fire the Facebook pixel for tracking purposes. It is crucial that you have this set up. Now, when you're setting it up in the first place, there's a couple of ways you can do that. If you use one of these providers to power your website, there's a native integration. And when you're setting it up, it'll be super easy to walk through Magento, BigCommerce, Shopify, make it really, really easy. And if you use one of the tag managers, such as Segment or Google Tag Manager, they also have integrations. They'll walk you through that whole setup. And then when it comes to your standard events, you can use something like a Google Tag Manager to fire events based on certain triggers. You can also integrate them if you're using something like a Shopify or like a WooCommerce. And a lot of the events will be fired by plugins or the native integrations. And finally, you do have the option to hard code your events. Typically, you're going to want to load these based on something that happens on the page, but occasionally you will do a page load. So on a certain button click or on submission of a form, fire the lead event, the purchase event, the add to wish list event. But those are all triggered after the Facebook base pixel fires and then when something later happens on your site. And then what do you do for validation? Well, the first thing is hopefully you're using Chrome and you can use the Facebook Pixel Helper, which is a Chrome plugin which you can deploy on any page to see what Facebook pixel is firing and what events it is tracking. So you can see there on the right that I was visiting a product page and the product had a price of $54.90. It was a dress. You can see how fast the page loaded. You can see what product groups it fell into. You can see that there's a page view fired and microdata fired. So this lets you verify that everything is set up correctly on your website. And then on the back end, you can go into the Facebook Pixel section in your business manager and see the actual data that's firing all types of events. And then this is a great place to go to kind of do some cross-referencing with your other business systems, whether they be back-end app loads or e-commerce platforms. This is also a place to look for weird spikes. Like you can see one here on the 15th of February that you can see there's an abnormality that we're going to want to look into as to why there's a massive spike in everything that day. But these are just a way for you to keep an eye on things and make sure that everything makes sense. So that's basically how to get started with your Facebook pixel. Make sure the base pixel is set up properly. Choose your events based on your business model. Implement them based on what platform you're using a standard integration or a plugin or a tag manager or even a hard code. And then verify your installation with the Pixel Helper and the data in the Business Manager backend. Good luck.